If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That's an old African proverb. I don't know who got it up. And but in my experience in the past few years doing business, I've realized if you want to go far and you want to also go fast, you should really have a team or have a group of like-minded people going with you. And this ties to today's topic on the Tech Your Business podcast, where we show business owners different ways to use technology to stay ahead of the competition. And that topic is masterminds. To discuss masterminds with us today will be Liz Scully. Liz has spent 20 years in Hollywood. She won an Emmy Award. And coincidentally, I just learned she grew up in Warri. That's like an hour from where I was born. So we had a long chat about that just before now. And she's now a business strategist. And welcome to the show. Let me not take everything off.
Thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here. It's lovely to talk about worry as well. Always lovely.
True. So I think let's for the listeners who might not be too clear about what it is, what's a mastermind group and why should they be interested in it?
My favorite topic. So, a mastermind group, there are many things calling themselves mastermind groups, but what I believe a mastermind group is that they're a small group that meet regularly, and in the group, you can ask questions that maybe you wouldn't feel kind of okay asking elsewhere. Maybe they are a little vulnerable. Maybe they're about something that isn't working in your business, but you feel safe to ask. You get really helpful advice from the whole group, and you make a plan, a goal that you will achieve by the next time. They are, in essence, super simple, but nobody wants to be the person who hasn't done their homework. So you make sure that all of your goals are done, and having a place where you can think through your business, because your family love you, your friends care, but they don't necessarily know anything about your business at all. So actually having a place where there's other business owners who can say, that's a terrible idea, or why on earth did you hire that person? You must get rid of them. Or even, that's a brilliant idea. Do that is so helpful. And that's what a good mastermind group will give you.
Okay, so I think that answers some questions I asked before, and I'm going to ask later in the interview. So, how does a mastermind differ from other types of business groups, maybe networking events or things like that? What makes it different?
Sure. No, feel free to stop me if I start ranting, because this is my absolute favorite topic. Because there is no one defining the word mastermind except for me, obviously. I'm
Hmm.
doing very well at this, but I have but one voice. So there are many things called masterminds that aren't actually masterminds. A real mastermind has that feeling of longevity. So you'll meet many times. And also there's the goals. So you need goals, you need people, you need longevity. That's the thing. So there are things called masterminds that, as you say, are networking groups. Now, in a networking group, apart from the fact they're not great, you can't really ask complete strangers advice, or you can, but I wouldn't listen to it. You can maybe make a new friend. You can maybe make a new contact, a supplier, someone you might sell to. You're in a different mode than in a mastermind. In a mastermind, you are thinking about each other's business. And as you know, when you're helping someone else, your mind is in a different state than when you're thinking, why did that man give me his business card? He was very boring. That is a very different mind state than, gosh, this person, my friend, my mastermind chum, has this awkward marketing problem. One of the things I see in masterminds all the time and hear from the people that I've trained in masterminds is that sometimes it's when you're helping other people that you get the biggest breakthrough about yourself. Or when you're listening to one person give advice to someone else, you could think, oh, I could do that in my business. How great would that be? So, compared to a networking group, very different. And it's also because you see the same people in your mastermind group over and over again. And if it's a good, well curated mastermind group, they're at the same level as you. So you haven't got any brand new people or people who are 10 times ahead of you. It's always
Yeah.
nice to be in a room where you are really learning stuff, but for them it can be frustrating, and you want your group to show up week after week. So you want to be the same level. You want to be people that you can ask questions to. So it's not a networking group. It's not just a nice weekend away with friends. I've seen that called a mastermind group. That's not a that's lovely, but it's not a mastermind group. It's not a course, although you can have a course with a mastermind, because if one person is teaching and other people are taking notes, that's a very different, again, mind state than when you've all come together to let's see how we can help each other. And that's the key. It's that sort of feeling of leaning in so that we are helping each other together.
Leaning in so we're helping each other. So I like those points, having longevity, having goals, regular goals, and having people on the same level as you. So I think that differentiates it from these other things people talk about. So now for still the business owners listening, what are some challenges they might be having? I know you've mentioned some in your previous answer. So what are some challenges a business owner might be facing that a mastermind would help them fix?
So there are the obvious things like hiring, firing, thinking through a big idea, and that to me is the key. That's what I see on the high level masterminds I run. But it can also be as simple as I have made this flyer or I have made this sales page. What do you think? And it's actually a business answer as opposed to your mother looking at it and going, "It's lovely, dear. That's very nice." That is of no use. Whereas if someone looks at it and says, "I don't know where to buy," or this messaging doesn't match the messaging of your rest of your business, or these colors are really jarring on my phone, they look fine on my laptop. Now obviously you can get people to test that, but if you have a little group of masterminders, you can ask them all at the same moment to open something online. And because all of my masterminds are video masterminds these days, you can see that moment where they open it. You can see if they're going, "Ah, that's fabulous," or you can see 4 or 5 people go, "It's lovely," and their face is falling, because that first moment of looking at things, you never get to see that really. You send it out into the world, you don't get to see it. Seeing it with your mastermind and knowing they are going to be honest enough to tell you, "Yeah, this sucks, this needs to be redone," is super helpful.
And I think that thing you said, where sometimes it's when you're helping other people, you get the best insights. I've actually realized that a lot. I find it difficult giving myself advice. So most times when I want to give myself advice, I just create a person with my same problem and try to advise that person. So it's it
It's
works
very
a
hard.
lot.
It is really difficult. I'm a business strategist, so I have the same thing. I can build a beautiful strategy. It's a lovely strategy. It would work great. And I take to my mastermind, I sit there and go, "So this is great. Should I be doing this?" Now, normally in coaching, if you're questioning something, it should be, "Well, it's not the right thing." No, it's just, I'm really good at strategy. And it's like this strategy is beautiful. Is it, should I be doing it? The other thing a mastermind can do for you is, because they meet over time and we see you as a group for a long, long period, they can see things that you just can't see. Like, I remember that. So basically, masterminds are goal coaching, and so you make sure that you hit things all the time. So I just wasn't hitting my goals. This is in my own mastermind. This is a terrible sign. This is my job, and I'm not doing it. And my mastermind said, "Have you considered?" Because I'd gone deep into the, am I doing the wrong goals? Am I moving in the wrong direction? Have I chosen the wrong thing? Maybe I should recalibrate. Maybe I should pivot. And my mastermind said, "Have you considered maybe you're just tired?" I was like, "Oh, so when did you take a holiday?" I'm like, "Oh." Now, if your friend said that to you, say, "You don't understand what it's like running a business. You have no idea." If your mother said it, same thing. Whereas when your masterminders say you're working too hard, "Oh, okay, maybe I should take a rest." That makes a huge difference. And because you trust the group, because they're people who understand, it makes all the difference. And in that case, they were absolutely right. And sometimes it can be just obvious things like, "You always get tired in April," or your mother annoys you every September. "Do you not remember this?" "Oh, yeah, no, she does." Those things are really helpful.
Amazing. So let's go back to the this thing. I think anyone listening now has a clear idea of what masterminds are, who they can help, and that's out of the way. So can you tell us a bit about your background and how you got to this point working with masterminds?
Sure. So my background is in film, as you mentioned. I spent 20 years working in big Hollywood visual effects. So basically, I sat in the dark with a bunch of sweaty boys as we made lighting effects on big films. The sort of films like big summer blockbusters. They look beautiful, but they're not very good films. That's the stuff I spent my life on. And it was great. It was beautiful, but it was incredibly hard work. And we worked 7 days a week. We worked all the time. But the teams are very high level. They are very well paid to be correct. Everyone has an opinion. Does this not sound like entrepreneurs? Everyone is convinced that they are right and that their part of the budget is the most important thing, and everyone's watching them, and they have to do that. Right, just like working with entrepreneurs. But when I left, I wanted to stay in that high energy world. And so coaching, because I'd been working with my lighting teams for years, it was very similar. And although it sounds slightly odd, the way that you manage a lighting team, and I was lighting every day, being on set, dealing with those things, working with hundreds, if not millions of pieces of data, making sure that our very talented people are doing the best. That's exactly what I still do. I still help people with how to grow, how to move, how to showcase each person. And film directors, who are often the people I was working with, they have so much on. They are working on a pre-production for a film that we don't even know about yet. They're the film that they are currently shooting and the post-production for the film they've just shot. And we were the post-production. So when you're speaking to them, they have all of the scenes of 3 films going on in their head at the same time. It's very hard to get their attention. It's very hard to get their focus. They're worried about money and suits and what does the studio think and how is the distribution going to work. And there was that problem they had this morning, whatever it was. So again, it's very similar to coaching entrepreneurs through that. My launch didn't go well. I need help, but I have this 6 other things I'm working with. It's lovely. It sounds like I'm working in different worlds. It's actually the same.
Amazing. Okay, so now I think that covers that. So now I was talking with you at the beginning about trying to do something similar. Then I didn't call it a mastermind, but over time I realized, okay, I started business about in 2010. That's like 14 years ago, and none of my family members are business people. So most of the time they don't understand what I'm doing. They don't even understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. Like I have like 2 degrees. I should be in an office, being comfortable and stuff like that. Like you mentioned, where I was born is like the oil industry, so I should be there. And everybody's wondering, okay, why are you doing this and why are you doing that? So I didn't really most of the things I had to go through the challenges and all that. I had to figure them out myself. And over time, I tried to get people together to okay, let's figure these things out together and all that. And it never worked because most times, like you've mentioned, it was mostly people I knew and mostly friends and co. So starting a mastermind, what steps should a business owner trying to start a mastermind take to make sure that it works so it doesn't end up like those things I tried to do earlier?
Well, you're right. Unfortunately, this is something I see a lot. When we want to be in a mastermind, we ask the people nearest to us, but it doesn't work. Now, I think it doesn't work for several reasons. Sadly, one of them is specifically because it's free. And I know that hurts us because we would like everything that is good to be free. I know I would. But the problem is if you're not paying even a tiny amount, there's no buy-in. There's no reason to stay. And when we ask the people nearest to us, they're not necessarily the best masterminders. Because what you want in a mastermind is people who really understand your business. So I'm not saying that you have to have, if it's all realtors or real estate people, you have to have a mastermind all of realtors, or it's all podcasters. We must all have podcasters together. That's not what I'm saying. But you must have people that have a similar idea of business. If it's an online business, you want other online businesses. If it's a bricks and mortar product business, you probably want to be with other product businesses. And mixing together is really important. I know what some of the best advice I've learned from was from someone who worked in very high level fancy hotels, which if you'd asked me, I would never have said, oh, a 5-star hotel manager is going to teach you more about business than anyone else. Because in a hotel, it's all about making sure that every guest has the same great experience. I'm like, I'd never thought of that. How interesting. So there's that. But back to your free mastermind. You want to ask people who are moving at the same speed as you. So they're in the same sort of industry, and it can be very wide. Are they online? Are they product based? Are they service based? That kind of stuff. I mostly work with coaches and copywriters. So other designers, other people that are coaching is really helpful. That works. You also need people who are at about the same level. So in your mastermind, were there some people who were really advanced and some people very junior?
I think most of them were very junior. Yeah, most of them were very
Were you
junior.
the most experienced person?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's quite common. So they potentially weren't at a point where they would really appreciate the mastermind. And also, if you had got it up and running and it had stayed together for a long time, eventually you might have got quite bored with the fact that you were always
Mm,
adding input. And the other people can feel, if you're right at the beginning and you're with someone who's much more advanced, it can feel really intimidating. I know I've been in a room just once with a whole bunch of people where they were all making US dollars, like seven-figure millionaires, eight-figure
yeah.
millionaires, and it was me. And and dear listener, I am not making that kind of money, not even close. And it was horrifying because people say, oh, "What's your business, Liz?" I'm like, little smaller than this. And I just didn't know what to say to them. I could help them. I could teach each of them how to run a mastermind, but I didn't feel confident in that space. So you need to have people that are roughly speaking at the same level. You then need to have people who are moving towards their goals in the same way. Meaning, if you have someone who is at the same level of business, but they don't want to be doing it 2 years from now, maybe they're going to get married, they're going to move to a different country, they don't want to be running a business then their interest, they're slowing down when you're speeding up. So that speed to goal is really important. I think we've all got that one friend who is moving at a million miles an hour. They are working 25 hours a day all the time. Maybe it's you, Peter, in your friend circle. But that feeling of push, 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 if you are not in a room full of people like that, then you're going to feel like these people are behind me. They're not keeping up. So you need people who are similar, people who are moving at a same speed to goal. And then you need them to really understand the way the business works and the way masterminds work. So when people join my masterminds, which are all paid, I have to say, but when they join, I ask them to make sure that they will be there 80% of the time. So there's a big
Mm,
commitment. And if they can't commit to that, don't join. So it's not a kind of, I'll come along when I feel like it. No, you have to be there. You have to be there. You have to commit. You're there for the team. Super important. So commitment and commitment's really important. Goals are really important. Speed is really important. But the key is when we start our own masterminds, we tend to ask people who are just available on a Tuesday or they can meet because they're only down the road from us. That doesn't make them the best masterminders. And there is nothing sadder than watching a mastermind sort of fall apart because
yeah.
everybody means well, but suddenly someone isn't showing up, and then once one person isn't showing up, it all just falls apart. It's sad, really.
Yeah, so I think so we should have people moving at the same speed towards their
Mhm.
goals in the same sort of industry at roughly the same level, and they should be committed and understand how the business you're building works, and also understand how masterminds work. Also, like you mentioned, so I think those are some things we. I think probably all of them weren't there when I was working on this earlier, so it's answered the question really well. So you said that masterminds being free doesn't work. So what sort of price range would you say is good for a mastermind?
Well, obviously, this changes with each country, but in my world, I mostly work with people in the US. So I'm based in London, but I work with US and Canadian clients most of the time. So when I'm training people, I suggest that for their mastermind, they start at $500 a month. So start with a little 3 month mastermind and go from there. So that would be $1,500, but give people a break on the price if they buy early. It needs to be like just a little bit more than is comfortable. So if you charge $5, it's the same as free, really, because people are like,
Mm.
it's the same as a coffee, it doesn't matter. You
Yeah.
want it to be enough that it is a little bit painful to not go. I paid for that and I'm wasting my money. So it needs to be in whatever that means to you and your circle. If you're in those seven-figure millionaires, you could probably be charging 20 grand and people would be like, it doesn't really matter. But I would hope that no one is wasting $20,000. Certainly, if you are, I can help you. Please step this way. We both can. It'll be lovely. But it needs to be enough that people would notice it. I would suspect maybe a good rule of thumb would be each session needs to be about the price of a good night out, whatever that means in your place. So in London, that would be as your minimum. If you're having dinner and drinks and you're going somewhere, that's somewhere around 100 to 200 pounds. Now, obviously, you can spend a lot less or you can spend a lot more. But at that point, if I've spent 100 quid going out, I know I've had a good night out. So that would add up to about $400 if I met 4 times a month. So maybe that's a better way to think about it for wherever you are in the world. Now, these are your bottom of the rates. You can charge whatever you like. You just need to work your way up to it. I have clients who do charge 20,000 a month. I wish my avatar was at that point. I will be moving there eventually. But that principle, you need to know your people. What are they going to charge? And when you are paying, so for your friends' mastermind, you probably want quite maybe the cost of a good night out per session. I would get people to pay in advance. Don't pay each time, because otherwise, if they're short of money or they don't really fancy it, they're not going to go. And also, when we pay monthly, every time the bill goes out, you think, did I get my money's worth this time? Whereas if you pay up front, you are going to be attentive for the whole 3 months or 6 months or year, because the pain of having paid in advance, you want to get your money's worth. So you're going to stay in the group till till things start working. Because obviously, if you join a group today, it's not going to have worked by tomorrow. It needs a bit of time for the whole result to get together. I know that in India, where I started my first mastermind, I think that might have been free. I think it was free to begin with. And then here's the thing. This is something I've never even heard of. The people in the mastermind got such value out of it after a year, they offered to pay.
Wow.
And I'm like, what? Like, this is not how commerce works, but I like it. And for me, that was the moment where I realized this is going to work, because they were concerned I would stop doing it if it wasn't economic. So they offered, to be fair, they offered small money. But again, it was about the cost of a nice night out in Bangalore, where I was living. So I think it's important for it to feel a little bit painful in the wallet. Not very
Yeah.
much, but just a little.
Okay. So now I think the next thing I'll ask is, since people around you are not the best candidates for your masterminds, how can someone starting a mastermind attract or find the right members to mastermind with?
Great question, and always the trickiest. So, I would start by writing a list, as you would if you were going to do a paid mastermind, like a fully launched mastermind, like I do. Write a list of people who would be your ideal candidates, people who are at the right level. So, you write that list. And then, if you have people that are a good fit on there in your world, approach them, explain what you're going to do, explain that there will be a small fee, and this is how it will work. Now, if you only have a few people, which is most of us, if you only have a few people at that level, then begin to look at who else you know in our wider circle, people we don't know directly, people who aren't our closest friends, friends of friends, people that we've met. I guest on a lot of podcasts. I'm sure you meet lots of people like this. Are there people that you've met that you'd think, I'd like to mastermind with them? I don't think they're doing that yet. Let's talk. So that kind of wider social net. Look on LinkedIn, look at the people you know, and don't make it a big salesy push. Get to know them better. And because sometimes, as you know, we get to know people a little more. We're like, this person's really annoying. I can't
Yeah.
possibly be a mastermind. No, no, not them. Because you want the person in your group to want to help the group. You don't want them to just be the big man, to be the person who
Yeah.
speaks over everyone. No, no. You want them to be leaning in and helping people. So have a look at your contacts. Think about the people maybe you used to know in previous jobs or previous places you lived, or maybe back at university. What are they doing now? How can they fit together? Because we all know hundreds more people than we're actually in regular contact with.
Yeah.
Go through that and get it down to a short list of about 10 if you can, and begin to think about it. Because a mastermind group can run with 4 people. It can run with two
Yeah.
people, to be honest, although that is really accountability at that point. But you can run it with very small numbers and begin to speak to people. And maybe don't charge for the first one and explain that there will be a fee. And if it's your free mastermind for your friends, again, we don't want it to be free. What you could do is take the money that is spent people pay each month or each week or whenever you meet, and put that together into a kitty that you then do. We'll do an off-site retreat once a year, or we'll go somewhere
Hmm.
nice, and no one will want to leave because I've paid my money all this time. Like, I want to go on a nice trip. But I think it's important that we pay so that we value it more. In sales, we say that the hardest shift is from free to paid. So
Yeah.
start paid. I don't know if you've ever given someone something and then want them to pay for it. It's horrible getting them to actually value it properly.
True. So I think I like the answer. You've answered a lot of things in that. And one thing you said was that you should get your list down to about 10, that you can start with maybe 4 people in your mastermind. So what size of a mastermind is too big, first of all? Then how often should mastermind groups meet to be effective?
Sure. Well, what I teach in my lovely course on how to run masterminds is that there is a difference if you meet in person or if you meet online. If you meet in person, you can have maybe 10 people. 10 people is a bit busy, but you can have in person somewhere between 6 and 8 really easily. And that's because in person, we can read each other's body language much more easily. So if someone's talking too much and you want, because that does happen, let's face it, you can lean forwards with your mouth open and your finger up and they will just stop speaking. You can't do that in Zoom in the same way.
Yeah.
So in Zoom, instead of having 6 to 8 people, 4 to 6 people is the way to go. Now, in person, my very first mastermind in Bangalore, we met, I think there were 8 of us, and we met weekly. And that's too often, I think, because you have to have tiny goals that way. I will make the sales page. I will do the thing. You have to break it down into I will write the copy. Next week, I will check the copy. Third week, I will make the sales page. So I like to meet every other week because if you go down to monthly meetings, people forget stuff. They don't remember who you are, or what goes on, or what was it you did again? Was it that? Like, they can't remember any of that stuff. So but that said, if people are super busy, if it's a very high level mastermind, monthly, that's quite a big commitment for them. If they're going to go somewhere specific, if they have to cross a city or travel, or they have to fight traffic, that's quite a big deal. So for really high end, expensive masterminds, they tend to meet for a weekend, maybe 3 times a year. They are the fanciest because if you are, let's go back to those 7 figure millionaires, God, I love them. Those people, they are too busy to be on a Zoom call every 2 weeks. That they haven't got time for that.
Yeah.
But they could clear their diary once or twice a year, maybe 3 times a year, if they're going to get great value out of it. But I wouldn't start with that. If you want to start a local mastermind, then maybe start with we'll do one, we'll try it every other week. If that works, we'll stay with that. If you don't like it, we can go down to once a month.
Amazing. So I think you've shared a lot of value on masterminds with us. And there's something you mentioned about in-person masterminds, you being able to read body language, you being able to interrupt politely and things like that. So in what other ways does an online or Zoom mastermind differ from the in-person mastermind?
So most of my masterminds are Zoom masterminds, and they're great. People stay in them for years and years and years. But where they lack, which I don't like to say very often, but where they lack compared to an in-person mastermind, is the bits in between. So the bits before the mastermind or after the mastermind. So if you go away for the weekend to spend time with your 10 mastermind friends, you have a lot of time to do the masterminding, to be coached in front of other people, to get other people's input. There is lots of times afterwards where they can come to you. Say you get your hot seat, you're in the spotlight, you ask questions on a Thursday. Someone can sidle up to you on a Friday and say, I've been thinking about what you're saying, and I think this, and we'll add something, or maybe I can help you in this way. So it's those little, it's like going to a conference. It's the moments by the coffee machine that are helpful. And
Yeah.
it's the time to think. Now, the big thing about going away as averse to just meeting in person, if you go away to a different location for mastermind, is you've carved out that space in your diary when you're not doing anything else. You certainly shouldn't be. You're not answering emails. You've told the family you're going to be away, so you can really think about your business, and you get some of that with just a normal every other week in-person mastermind. But what tends to happen is there's always someone on their phone. Stop it, leave it away, don't do your email, don't do this. Or they come in directly from having spoken to a supplier, or they've got there's some major business problem that is so in their face, or even just the traffic is so. In Bangalore, the traffic is
Yeah.
appalling. People would arrive all bent out of shape from just having got there. Whereas in Zoom, you just sort of drift over. You've made yourself a cup of tea, everything's great. You haven't had to even put shoes on. Life is good. So for me, I really like Zoom stuff. And you don't have to work extra hard. And for you or for me, when I was in India, I could work with people all over the world and not even consider any of that stuff. The only thing in Bangalore I had to worry about was power cuts. There's a lot of those. I had one of those unstoppable power sources, but of course, there's a moment where it goes off and then it goes on again. And then the generator
Yeah.
goes on, goes off, goes off. And each time internet goes down, internet comes up, down, up, down, up. So that was tedious. But my mastermind got used to it. They're like, oh, okay, well, she'll be back in a minute. And then she'll go, and then she'll be back again. So
Yeah.
that's the only thing that is absolutely the only part of it. I think most of the time, for most of us, unless we happen to be surrounded by a lot of people that are a great fit to be in a mastermind, it's better to do an online one, because then people can be anywhere. You don't have to worry about that. And even if they're on holiday or they're going to a conference, they might carve out time to be with you. So you're going to see them a lot more often.
For an online mastermind, can you just walk us through a typical online mastermind session and the technology, the tech tools that are involved to make one work?
Okay, so the tech is very simple. You need Zoom and a notepad, really, email. That's it. That's everything you need. You can make it a bit fancier by using calendar apps that will send out reminders, but that really, they are by nature very, very simple. Technology wise, you don't even need a microphone, to be honest. You've got a set of headphones with a mic attached to them, you're fine. So tech wise, you don't have anything fancy, but you do need to have a structure for your mastermind. So for the reason I have my course is because most people think I'll run a mastermind, and then when they come to start it, they're like, I have no idea what to do. So this is the information that I love to share, because it's very hard to find. There's lots of places that will tell you how to sell a mastermind, how to fill a mastermind, zip on actually how to run it. So I like my sessions to be 2 hours long, which I know feels like a long time, but is actually, I've tested it. 90 minutes is too short. An hour is way too short. Longer than 2 hours, it's appalling. People can't wait that long before a bathroom break, to be honest, right? So 2 hours is perfect. You have 2 hours. Say you've got 4 people or 6 people. Let's go with 6 people. So the first half hour is you do a little catch up explaining this is what's happening, any admin. Three people are not going to get a spotlight that time. So they give a catch up, maybe 6 or 7 minutes. This is what I did. Thank you for my goal information last time. I've hit my goals. I haven't hit my goals. I would love to have a conversation. Can someone help me with this? So it's just a very quick moment where we can get kind of a temperature of how they've been since we last saw them. So that takes half an hour, admin and those three catch ups. Then the next people, the other three that haven't spoken yet or have only given quick input, they get what I think of as a hot seat, which is maybe 27 minutes. So just a little under half an hour. In their hot seat, they give a very quick catch up, like the other people have, and then they ask their question. Now, I call it an ask, which is basically just a question, but I want them to have thought about it before they come. This is the thing that I need help with. They ask their question, and then this is crucial. They then shut up and listen because it's all about the input, and then everybody in the group, the other five people, and if I'm there, me, but if you're there, you, everybody else then gives quick input. And the reason that almost half an hour is the perfect amount of time is if you make it less time, the first thing you think of is the only thing you'll say. And humans, we tend to blurt like just rubbish. The first thing that comes out of our mouths is not very good most of the time. Whereas if you have a little bit longer, you can give a much more nuanced answer. There's a bit of to and fro, and then at the end of the hot seat, we get a goal from the person who's been in the hot seat. They commit to do that for next time, and we go forwards to the next person. So we've got three people doing a very quick catch up, three people doing an in-depth hot seat. And all that happens is that next time you meet, you just swap those people over. So the people that did the catch-ups do hot seats. The people that did hot seats will give us a catch-up on how they're doing on the goals they set. And it sounds so simple, but it needs a structure. Otherwise, you get that one person who just talks. And you get someone who's an introvert, who's very quiet, who's very smart, who never says a word. So having a structure just keeps people moving really quickly.
That's amazing, and I'm sure our audience really want to learn a lot more about that from you. So, can you share a success story from maybe a business owner being in a mastermind or having a mastermind, and how it's benefited, how it helped them?
Sure. So I have, like I said, I have a lot of copywriters who are in my world as service businesses, and my absolute favorite example is a lady joined us, and she wasn't making 100,000 US dollars a year. She was doing well, but she wasn't at 100K, which in the US is one of those benchmarks. That's the I'm not just doing okay, I'm doing well at this point. Okay. So we got her
Yeah.
in the first year, we moved her up to 100K. And it was about systems and making sure that she was moving in the right direction, growth. The second year, she also made 100K. But crucially, she'd had this just appalling family thing going on in the background. She couldn't commit as much time to her business. So she made 100K, but only working at 1.5 days a week. So on comparatively, she made a lot more money. So first year we got her up to
Wow.
100K. Second year, she's still at 100K, but she's working much less time. Third year, she wrote me that she was doing really well. She wrote me this lovely little email that said, I don't know what you did, Liz, but I know it happened in masterminds because masterminds can be a bit esoteric how they work. She said, I don't know what
Yeah.
you did. I know it happened in masterminds, but the internet has backed the money truck up to my business and it's doing so well. I'm like, I knew this worked. That for me is the perfect mastermind setup. First, we make it easier and then we make it really work. And then we start cranking the handle so things put together. Makes such a difference.
That's amazing, an amazing story. So, what piece of advice, maybe something I have missed or not talked about that will be important to the audience? What piece of advice would you give to the audience, business owners, about joining or starting a mastermind that you'd love them to take away from this episode?
Well, Here's the weird thing. I have spoken to thousands of people about masterminds, about why they work and why they don't, and why they've been happy with masterminds they've run and why they haven't. And there's an interesting thing on the masterminds that don't work. I always ask people, why didn't they work? And the answers are completely different almost everywhere. But it comes down to one thing, which is there was this person in the group and they weren't a great fit. I'm like, okay, so there's one person and they were either terrible or too kind or they never turned up or so it's a person. I'm like, did you this is the key. Did you think they would be a problem before you joined? Either joining a group or running a group. And every single person has said, yeah, but I didn't think it would be a problem. And I'm like, So I've spoken to thousands of masterminders. So that's my key. If you are about to join a group and some part of you is thinking, I'm not sure this is going to work, it won't. Your intuition is so good at, and particularly as business owners, we are so good at sussing out who's going to be a client, who's going to be problematic, who's good, who isn't. And even just people can be wonderful, but not a good fit for the group. So if you have your spidey senses thinking, I'm not sure, don't do it. Don't do it.
Amazing. I think trust your gut. And that's one thing I've learned over time in business. Most times, the first thing that you feel is always right.
Exactly. Trust that. You're right. Yeah, just it goes so wrong as well. So, and it's true if people are paying you because it's actually harder to say no. I've certainly spoken to people. I'm like, you are delightful, but you are not a good fit for this group. And they are always the keenest people. Not just perhaps or maybe. They're always the ones waving money at you. You're like, oh, I have to say no. But it's for the good of the group. It's just for the good of the
Yeah.
group.
Yeah. Okay. So now, for the listeners who have listened to this episode so far, I've enjoyed it so much too. If they want to learn more about masterminds, especially when you talked about the structure, I believe that's key because just getting on a meeting and not knowing, having an agenda or knowing what you're doing there is going to make it fail. Definitely, like they say, planning to fail is a failure to plan or something like that, or failing to plan is a plan to fail. So if you want to learn more about masterminds, learn about the structure, learn about starting their own mastermind or anything, or join any of your training programs, what's the best way they can reach you?
Well, I've made your listeners a secret page on my website.
Hmm.
Ooh. So if you go to rethinkcentral.com, there is a page on rethinkcentral.com/tech your business. There is a page full of, there's some mastermind PDFs you can download. There are some videos. There's all sorts of stuff. You don't even need to opt in. I just really want this information out there. So rethinkcentral.com/tech your business.
Amazing. So that'll be on the screen, rethinkcentral.com/take your business, and also in the show notes for anyone who wants to learn more about this topic. So thank you so much, Liz, for coming on the show. Thank you for being so generous with your time and your knowledge with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And for the listeners, I'm sure you learned a lot about masterminds because I did. So if you know anyone else who struggles with masterminds, is thinking of starting a mastermind, or has issues with any of the things covered in this episode, don't forget to share this episode with them. And if you want to be the first person to know when we come out with helpful episodes like this, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe wherever you see us, wherever you hear us. So till next week when we're out with a new episode, keep taking your business. Bye for now.